Welcome back to Doing Time with Dan, where today we're going to do something completely different. So I talked to my cousin Paul, who's built a few computers. He told me it's not that hard. I mean, I learned how to fly an airplane and do all kinds of other stuff. I'm sure I can figure out how to turn all of these components into a working computer. At least I hope so, and you'll get to see exactly how I did it. I want to give a shout out to a few websites and YouTube channels. One is PCPartPicker.com. That was really helpful. I picked a motherboard, a processor, and all these other components, and it shows you what is compatible and what isn't. That way, you're sure that the parts you get will fit together for the most part. I also checked out the Linus Tech Tips YouTube channel. Great channel. Those guys are really friendly, very, very helpful. And of course, the ASUS channel with JJ there, I mean, that's just a great channel. He builds whole computers. He discusses all kind of technical things that are way over my head. But still, it was very, very informative. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to take this case right here from Corsair. I'm going to install this motherboard followed by this CPU. We're going to power it all with this power supply. We're going to cool that CPU with a Corsair water cooler here. We have an Intel SSD inside this little box. There's another SSD in there from SanDisk. We have some speakers, a keyboard, a mouse, a bunch of other little components here, cables and whatnot that we're going to put all together inside that case to make a working computer that I intend to use for some light gaming, but also for some video editing, compression, things like that. I can hand it off to this computer and let it work on that while I'm doing some other stuff with my laptop. I decided to go with the i7 4790K processor. Was well reviewed for my purposes. Remember, we're talking light gaming, we're talking some video editing and compression and things like that. This processor is supposed to be able to do all of that, and I'm very confident that it will. There's not a whole lot in the box here. That's the processor right there on the top, and I'm going to leave it inside the plastic until we actually install it in the motherboard because I don't want to get any contaminants or bang it up in any way. But just to show you what comes inside the box, and I'll do some close-ups here so that you can see it. Of course, the processor is there on the top, and packed inside, you also have a heatsink air cooler here that comes from Intel. Now I'm told that this will cool the processor at normal clock speeds. Of course, you know, Intel is shipping this for you to use, so I'm confident that it would work. Of course, I plan on learning some things, doing some overclocking and things like that, and I decided to go with the Corsair water cooler here, the H100i, because that little central processing unit may get rather hot. Of course, you have some instructions and some other warranty information and stuff inside the box. Not very exciting unless you have a problem and you need to send it back. I got a great deal on this here at Micro Center. It was actually all taxes and everything included. It was $70 cheaper than I could get it online. 70 bucks is almost enough to pay for one of these coolers or some of the other components, so be sure to check your prices wherever you go. Now, moving on to the motherboard. Went with the ASUS Z97 Pro, which has Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi was something I definitely wanted. I know you gamers and other people, you're not worried about Wi-Fi. You either connect directly through a cable to your internet service or your network, or you put a card in or something like that. I wanted to have it built onto the board, and this board came with that. The thing I bought this cube for is because I like the dual chamber nature of it. You have the side with all your hot components, let's call it, in here. So your motherboard is going to mount on the center there, and then you're going to have your GPUs and all the other components on this side, some of your hard drives and that. And then all your cables and stuff, they go in the other side. I'll take that door off there too so you can see everything. But I'm going to get this case ready to go because I want to install the motherboard and some of those other components so that they're safely grounded and protected inside the case. Now, before we put the motherboard in, of course you want to put the power supply. Using the RM750 from Corsair. Fits in here. You can move this SSD drive bays here if you want to. You can even take it out. But there's enough room in here. The only thing is I had to move some of these cables down. And some of you might want to put some felt tape here because I'm worried about maybe some vibration or something going on down there. But we'll see how it goes. I'm not real worried about that. The other thing is this actually installs this way. So when I show you the back, the lettering is going to be upside down, which I'm not crazy about that, but thank God nobody sees it. And we just seat right in there like that. And we have our power supply in place. Now with the power supply in there, we can put the motherboard in. The standoff, they're already installed here, and I test fitted the motherboard so that it does have the proper distance and fit exactly the way it's supposed to go. You can see I already have the I/O shield in there. So now it's time to set in the motherboard, which we're doing our best to keep our fingers off it. And as you can see, it fit in perfectly. Right on top of the standoffs. All I have to do is screw that fast, and then we can take the next step. So now comes another fun part. We're going to install the CPU, which I still have inside the plastic here. Of course, here's the CPU socket. Going to release, not touching any of that. The good news is there's small notches on the CPU. You can see the notches here, so you know which way it goes. Of course, we never touch the pins. Just gently set that in there, make sure that it's seated properly. See a little triangle here, pointing to the bottom left. Okay, and then we close the cover, which requires a little bit of pressure. Of course, remove the cap, and our CPU is now installed. Now, before installing the cooler, you have to install the Intel backing plate, which goes in here like this. And that's going to be a little bit tricky. Just going to have to hold that in there. So you turn the computer back over and make this fast. I'm just testing the fit out here to see which way to put this. Pretty much has to go that way, and looks like it'll work out pretty good. This will be the top of the case. These two hoses will run over toward those other fans. So, not the most elegant solution, but I think for one that's self-contained, I think that'll work pretty good. I'm going to mount the radiator, and then we'll get to mounting this, the cooling block. The thermal paste is pre-applied onto our pump block here, and the Intel bracket is magnetic, so it snaps right down onto the pump block, and we're ready to set this on top of our CPU, which we need to do with a single motion and not move it. So there it sits, and very carefully I'm going to fit my thumb screws on here so that that stays tight without losing contact between the pump block and the CPU, so we don't have to redo the thermal paste, which is actually turning out to be a bit easier than I expected. As prescribed by the user's manual, so that's a tight fit, but went in there quite easily. And now we're going to put in the other memory stick. Sorry, it goes this way. Line up the notches. Make sure you push that down. Okay, so here's a look at BIOS on the first startup. I did this straight off the board followed the manual according to ASUS, and it worked out really, really well. There's a lot of options on here, things that I don't totally understand at this point. Remember, this is my first build, so I'm going to be exploring all of these things. There's lots of options as you go into advanced mode here that you'll see. It's very intuitive, it's menu driven, your mouse works, as well as the arrow key so you can scroll up and down very easily as you explore these different options to tweak your system or make modifications to get the most out of it. Going into advanced mode here, you'll see even more menus. All of these things are explained inside the manual, and don't forget there's plenty of information online, YouTube, different other sources. Some of the monitoring functions are duplicated. You'll see in a few seconds here the Corsair link also keeps an eye on all these temperatures, which it will show up on your Windows version of your desktop, so that you can look at that anytime you want. Very handy, if you're doing some heavy duty use on that CPU or your GPU, you know what the temperatures look like. And after I did this, I installed Windows onto that SSD drive, and that is really nice because it loads, within a minute you're up and running. In fact, a minute might be quite long. So next thing we're going to do is take a look at the Windows screen. And here's a look at the Windows desktop as well as the GPU tweak program there from ASUS. That came right with the drivers. So all of that's in there, and you can mess around with that as you want. The next thing you're going to see is the Corsair monitoring system. Downloaded this from Corsair's website. Works out perfectly. Full screen. You get to see all your fans, all your temperatures for your GPU, your CPU. That's a nice little feature. It's right there on your desktop. You can take a look at it anytime you want. Well, as you can see, I got the system up and running now, and I'm very happy with it. There's just a few little hitches that came up along the way. I had trouble installing the ASUS drivers for the Strix 970 video card. I was a little bit disappointed in myself there. I must have made some kind of mistake. Downloaded them from the site, couldn't get them working. But of course I made a call to my cousin Paul. No problem at all. He said go over to NVIDIA. I downloaded the drivers from there, and literally within a few minutes I was up and running. The card is functioning perfectly well. I also have the ASUS GPU tweak that I showed you there just a few seconds ago working, and I'm going to be doing some tweaking there, different things with that, as well as with the overclocking of the CPU, the memory, so that I can really get the most out of this system, which I think will do a great job for my video editing and compression, which is why I put this thing together. It is a rather big box, but once I add in some more hard drives and a few other components here, maybe even a second video card if I want to get into some super gaming, which I'm not sure that I want to do that, but what the heck, I have the system together, so one more card and I can go like, big 4K screen or something like that. As you can see, I'm going to have to redo the Doing Time with Dan studio here because these big boxes and screens like that, they take up a lot of room. And remember, you can do a lot of this stuff yourself. Just check out YouTube. There's great sites out there, people that are willing to help you through the whole process. You can save some money and you can get the system exactly the way you want it. Thanks for stopping by, and don't forget to check back frequently for more updates from here and around the world.